You know what? It says, I'm actually live. All right, let's run this counter, see who shows up, and we'll go. And I probably should be looking there instead of there when we start the show, but it's good to see who's there. All right, everybody, Scott's weather underway, and it's a lovely Thursday. Tomorrow, I don't know if we actually, it's the day before the 4th of July, so either tomorrow is the holiday or it's the Monday following. It's probably tomorrow since it's adjacent to that, and since I'm not working at a station and get to set your own hours, it doesn't impact me the way that it would in years past. All right, there we are. Let's kind of start with Australia. Let's pop over there and see what's going on. Going to be a couple of dry days. If there's some showers, they're off the southwest side of the coast or the eastern side, New Zealand, wet and green. That's why it's as gorgeous as it always is. But over at Weather Zone, and look at their kind of little tweet stream, which is always interesting. We don't bring it up terribly often, but when we do, it's always kind of interesting. The Alps enter July around with 1/3 their average natural snow cover up high, and no snow on some of the lower slopes. Fortunately, there's fresh snow on the way during the next couple of days. And that is what looks like, well, temperature. So we've got some cooler weather coming in on that far southeast portion of the island and Tasmania, of course. Always cooler than the mainland. The first day of Australia's coldest month of the year, July, while the winter solstice, the shortest day, occurs on the 21st or late June. And there's always a lag in ocean cooling or ocean warming, depending on which direction you are on your way. Hey, Vicky, I see you over there kind of looking in from the side. There's the average maximum, average mean, and so forth. So July is Australia's coolest weather. So if you got any Aussie friends, you'll probably notice a bit of a change in their attire as we move through this coolest month for those folks. Over to my Twitter feed and some of the stories that I have liked over the last 24 hours, just so I can kind of collect them all in one particular spot. We've got another round of dust headed into the Gulf Coast. It is there presently. The Weather Channel posting 11 hours ago that another surge of Saharan dust has reached the western Gulf Coast, and it may bring more hazy skies. The last one was certainly visible as far north. I saw pictures from Omaha, Nebraska, which is a far, far way away from that desert, that massive desert granted on the continent on the other side of the very big pond. And this has been an interesting story. From the National Weather Service's SPC, or Storm Prediction Center, June 2020 had the fewest number of tornado watches in history, with just 6 for the month of June. That beats the previous fewest of 8 set just last year. The combined number of May and June tornado watches was just 16, which is 12 fewer than the previous record low May-June total of 28 set only 2 years ago. So if we look at this list, how many of these are recent years? Well, here's this year, 2020, the lowest ever. Last year, the next lowest ever. 2016, just 4 years ago, at the fourth lowest. You have to pop back to 1988 for 10 watches in June. And then the others are also within the last 2 decades. So this is a kind of a curious trend when it comes to severe weather and tornado watches in particular. Usually even a small one like this will end up with a watch, since we've got such good surveillance gear that we can see these storms developing, and usually can predict them way ahead of time. Just a brief little touchdown way out in Dodge City, Kansas, for those storm chasers that just happen to be stationed in either eastern Colorado or western Kansas. May 2020, again, another indication of the decreasing severity of some aspects of weather. Saw significant severe weather and drought tornado. While severe weather reports were closer to normal in June, the tornado drought continued for another record-breaking month. The following tweet will get a brief summary of the severe weather for June. And then over at the Weather Channel, 20 weirdest things we've seen in 2020, and they go through a bunch of them. And it's a fascinating read if you wanted to head over to weather.com and then go into the news section. This I found fascinating. It's like one raptor chasing another. And just in case you haven't seen a bird flying around with a shark that it just happened to pluck out of the ocean. And this in particular, of course, is an osprey, not an eagle. Ospreys have the ability to kind of angle their feet so that their prey, as you can see there, can be flown into the wind, so it is more aerodynamic. And eagles don't have that option. They just have to clutch and then deal with the force of the wind resistance as they're flying off with their capture. Again, another Mike Bettis talking about June being well below average for tornadoes thus far. And if we do the trace for the course of the year, April kind of started off on target, and then a blast of events around 13, 14, 15, 16 April, and then it leveled off. And then we're still appreciating or accumulating severe weather events at a far, far slower pace than what is typical. And this I wanted to show because we don't get a lot of news out of China that hasn't been virus related lately. And this is simply astounding. The quantity of rain that has come out of the sky upstream of the Three Gorges Dam. And, you know, it's kind of interesting that there's such a centralized entity, the CCP, but yet they choose to not communicate their coordinated actions with the public. And so if there are dams upstream, as there are in some of these cases that we'll see, releasing the water and not necessarily alerting, yeah, this is a big long story. Maybe we don't want to go into the vocals. And one more, because this is just stunning, and then we'll pop back up. How incredible and how much water has been coming out of the mountains and then collecting in all of the rivers that pour into the Yangtze. And then that has to encounter the Three Gorges Dam, which is just an immense hydroelectric project. And then there's even some photographs that we have some structural integrity issues with this massive hydroelectric project. They say it's certain to be good for 50 years, but let's just say integrity and forthrightness isn't necessarily one of their strong points. So in some of these photographs, you can see that there's some convoluted, there's some wiggles, there's some very interesting shapes that are happening in that massive dam. So we'll see how long it can actually withstand this incredible deluge from above. All right, temperatures back to stateside from 90s up at International Falls, Minnesota, all the way through the Southern Plains. 101 out in I believe that's like Liberal, Kansas. My geography, honestly, since I haven't been on the air every day for 15 years, is not as sharp as it used to be, probably 80%, but boy, just knowing those just isn't what it used to be. And not as hot in California, it's still cool through the Northwest and the Northeast, beginning to warm up as well. But where we see some of these these midday thunderstorms roll through, we've had some places where we've got some afternoon cooling, and that is always welcome. What isn't necessarily welcome, I see you guys, yeah, Robin, we could use some of that water, but maybe not all of that. I think some of the rainfall totals have been literally 20, 30 inches worth of water. And those rivers as worn from all of the rain that they have been and are, it's just too much. They just cannot handle that kind of quantity. All right, this is the dew points, is what I'm looking at, and over the states. I get into these darker greens, and we're finding dew points at or above 75 degrees. And earlier today, as I was looking along the Gulf Coast, it was just incredibly oppressive with temperatures middle and upper 90s. Tulsa's dew point last afternoon or last evening after we finished the show, I was looking at those, and those were 81, 82 degrees. And that gives you a heat index, even with a temperature below 90. That heat index, that feels like temperature, is still at or above slightly 100 degrees. But where the action today is on this western boundary of this big pool of humidity. And with that, we have seen these thunderstorms start today, nice and sunny, deep blue skies, and then boom, all the way from North Dakota through the Front Range of Colorado, and then down and deeper into Texas as we move through the afternoon hours. Some of those nice wetting rains through eastern Oklahoma, and also through parts of Mississippi, and then just crashing into the Gulf Coast now. But it's this guy. The Drought Mitigation Center, the Drought Center, was just kind of concerned about portions of northeastern Oklahoma as they were degrading very, very fast. And as is southern Colorado, southwestern Kansas, as we've gone into that's that deeper red. where temperatures have been above normal, the winds continue to blow, the dew points are low, and just an absence of rain. Most of this is in the S indicating rather short-term effects, but the rainfall deficits are now coming up on 8 to 12 inches of missing water. Same with the higher plains through the Dakotas back into Wyoming and Montana. We're missing about 2 months worth of moisture, but almost all of it is short-term in nature. And what we've had over the last 2 days are some pretty good storms, particularly North Dakota, South Dakota, and the eastern portions of Wyoming. Those have been very beneficial. And back to the high plains of Texas and into Oklahoma, they're slow-ish moving storms, so they're putting down a good third to maybe 2/3 of an inch of rain, but probably not enough rather than to just buy a couple of days worth of time when it comes to these drought situations. All right, as we head on to 4th of July, we'll just stick with this. Severe weather, eastern North Dakota. Otherwise, any place shaded in the green, you're at risk for a little bit of rain, a little bit of thunderstorm. And as we all know, those tend to be focused towards the latter part of the day. Just when you've had your morning sunshine, you've had your early to mid-afternoon barbecue, and then you're watching the sky, looking around. Yeah, and then the storm arrives. All right, record heat. This is tomorrow's anticipated record highs: Minnesota, Wisconsin, Columbus, Ohio at about 92 in that area. And then maybe even the east coast of Florida. No record cold lows, none of those. No record cold high temperatures. We will have a couple of warm nights here and there, but certainly nothing that would be way out and beyond any average standard deviation kind of event. All right, quick look at the jet stream before we wrap things up. The cool weather still in place, rotating out west. Another one across northern. I know what I wanted to show you. There was this guy all the way up in far northern Canada as an impact of one of these highs that gets displaced on the northern side of the jet stream. Temperatures middle and upper 70s as we get way up into northern Canada. Even farther north. I'd have to reset this whole thing to be able to slide it around, bring back the radar, move it here, turn back on the weather stations and bring up radar, and then it'll replot the data. There's always a process to manage these things. So that's kind of really where it's been warm as we move way up there. And I honestly didn't recall this territory being named as Nunavut. We're back to things as they were called before they were settled, before they were colonized. All right, back here, and this is why it's so warm way up that far north in northern Canada. It's because this high pressure is kind of trapped in between the deep low off the Canadian maritime provinces and then over western Canada, the northwestern U.S. And will it last? Yeah, it kind of sticks around at least through the weekend, and then another reinforcing surge of cooler weather into the Pacific Northwest, into California with nice onshore flow. But then the heat begins to build in the middle part of the nation, and that lasts most of next week and pretty much the following as well, as one would tend to expect as we move through at least the first half of the month of July. Oh, Robin, teaser. That's what weathermen always are. They're teasers. They just tease. That's kind of what they do. At about 5 drops, really, Risa, that's it. Just 5 drops, probably dirty drops, because I know when it rains here in the San Luis Valley, it's not a clean rain. Your car was cleaner before it rained, and once it rains, then you've got this like coat of dirt all over it, and you're like, oh, please, why did you just bother? Why did you bother with some rain? Just leave it alone. All right, yeah, Robert, we could use some of that, and Karen, 4th of July, enjoy it out there. Hope you had a good time. Well, let's just say that the plumber got done what the plumber needed to get done. All right, folks, thanks for stopping by on the end of this. Well, we're not the end of the week, but it feels like it's kind of close anyway. For a little bit of Scott's weather, and we'll check things out tomorrow, and I'll be on the Coffee Break Show with Vicki Helm tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock Mountain, 1 p.m. Eastern, and 10 Pacific, and you can kind of do some adjustments from there on out for your own particular location. All right, we'll see you then, where there is no shortage of things to talk about. See you then. Oh, yeah, end the broadcast. Hey, keep looking up.